Alexa, it is getting really excited in the horse racing world because we are only 2 weeks away from the Breeders' Cup World Championships on Friday and Saturday, 2 weeks from today. So the anticipation is getting there. It's hard not to talk about the Breeders' Cup, but we're going to do our best today. We have a couple things for this weekend so we can build a bankroll. Then in our final segment, we'll do a little Breeders' Cup preview.
Yeah, it's that time of year. It's getting very exciting. Like you said, I know you and I are both going to be out there at the championships, but we have to stay in the present a little bit at least. There's still, some great races this weekend at Keeneland and actually internationally. This weekend's a big weekend in racing. You got the Everest in Australia, which is known as the world's richest race with a $20 million prize. And it's also British Champions Day over at Ascot in England. So we are going to stay in the US though and talk about this big race up at Keeneland, the Raven
Whenever,
Run.
whenever you want to know what's going on in the world of racing, whenever you need help handicapping the races, preparing for the races, you want to head to drf.com, our website. And for those of you who are watching on SportsGrid, we're going to be showing you Timeform US profile cards, and we can actually give you a free look at more of those Timeform US profile cards if you want to get a look at them. Alexa, we'll mention that before we go to our commercial break. So here's what the slides look like. And for all of you, we'll have a promo code right before the commercial. So stay tuned there. Let's meet the field for the Raven Run. I like this race because every year, this is a race for 3-year-old fillies, Alexa, at the end of the year when there's not a whole lot of races for just 3-year-old fillies left in this division. So you'll get a chance to see them facing their own age group for just a few more times here. And we'll start with the number one, Fibber, who is stakes placed. And Fibber's in pretty nice form right now, had won back-to-back races before finishing second in the dogwood to My Main Squeeze. So we're looking at Fibber here. How do you think she stacks up with this group?
I like Fibber a lot. Chris Hartman, her trainer, claimed her 4 races ago for $100,000, and he's just really improved her under his guidance. All 3 starts have been the fastest races she's ever run. She's got a bullet work coming into the race today. I think she's kind of at her prime, at her peak.
Yeah, she seems like she's doing the best that she's ever done right now. Should be able to save some ground from the inside. The number two, Alexa, is Miuccia, who's a stakes winner. Was a third place finisher in the Prioress last time out behind Bright Work and Too Sharp. Too Sharp came out of that race to win next time out. So the race has come back live. And I feel like in a spot like this, so this is a grade 2 race. These are not quite the best, maybe the top of the division of the filly and mare sprinters, maybe just below. And I think that's where Miuccia probably fits with this group. She'll be a fair price in here. Do you like her at all?
I do and I don't because she's just so hot and cold to me. She'll have like really great
Yep.
performances and then have a not so great performance. So for me, given that, I would want a bigger price than 6 to 1.
New York bred is the number 3, My Main Squeeze. This is a very nice filly who is a multiple graded stakes winner. She just won the dogwood by 5 lengths. And if you go through her form, she's faced some of the best 3-year-old fillies like Torpedo Anna, like Ways and Means. Those two are going to be the top 2 betting choices in their individual Breeders' Cup races in just a couple of weeks. So she's faced some really tough company.
Yeah, I like my main. I think my main squeeze fits in here as a close. She's a closer, but does seem to do her best when she can kind of stalk near the pace, no more than 3 to 4 lengths back off of the leader. I don't know if I totally agree with time form that she's going to be so towards the back at the beginning of the race. I hope she can stay a little bit more forwardly placed. She's never been over the Keeneland course, and I will say her trainer's not really having a very good Keeneland meet. He's 1 for 19 right now, so that's a bit concerning. But despite that, I do still think she fits here and is going to be a player.
It's kind of a measuring stick for this field. You feel like you know what you're going to get from her, and that'll probably be good enough to hit the board. If someone jumps up and runs like an awesome race, they're good enough to win this thing.
Yeah.
And Twirling Queen is the next one we'll take a look at. This is a really sharp horse right now, Alexa. She's won 4 in a row, but those races have come on the synthetic surfaces and on the turf and going a little bit shorter. So not only is she going to have to move back to the dirt, but she'll have to stretch out a little bit from 5.5 furlongs to 7 furlongs.
Yeah, she didn't perform well on the dirt as a 2-year-old, and then they switched her to synthetic, and she hasn't lost. So, and on the turf. So now they're like trying her on dirt again. I guess I'm trying to understand the trainer's decision here. Maybe they're thinking, oh, some of this success is due to her just development and age, and we want to try her again on the dirt and see if, she fits there now. But I'm of the mindset if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I don't completely understand trying her here. I do you know Gino if she's actually going to run because she is cross
She's
entered at Belmont.
cross-entered, and I was gonna say that would make a lot more sense for her to be in a different spot, but you wonder we see a couple horses this weekend that are cross-entered in races at Keeneland and at Belmont at the Big
Yeah,
A. Sometimes at the time when we are recording this, it's a little early, so we don't have the final information there, but I agree with you. I'd be a little cold on her in this spot too. I don't
yeah,
know if 7 furlongs on the dirt is what she wants, but the next couple of horses in here feel like major players, and
right.
starting with the 5, Emery. She's the horse to beat. I mean, her last 3 races are so good. And she lost to Ways and Means, who I had just mentioned before. She's 4 for 6 overall, and her 2 defeats are to nice fillies.
Yeah, this horse is a formidable favorite in here. She's won 4 out of her 6 lifetime starts. The only 2 she lost were grade ones, both over muddy or sloppy tracks. She got second in the grade one test last out at Saratoga, behind, like you said, Ways and Means, who ran in the Kentucky Oaks, to put that in perspective, and is going to be a contender in the Breeders' Cup filly and mare sprint at the championships for $1 million. So she is absolutely no joke. Very quick early pace and likes to stalk the leader and grind him down at the end. I'm a big fan of Emery.
And if you look at who she beat 2 starts back in the victory ride, a horse named Mystic Lake. Mystic Lake beat My Main Squeeze. So the major rival for Emery has been defeated by a horse that she just dusted. So if you're playing that common rival game, she looks really good. The number 6, Vivi's Dream, was a nice 2-year-old kind of into the beginning of 3. And then most recently, earlier in the year, hadn't really been able to step forward all that much, but she kind of comes in a decent pattern. She's a grade 3 winner, Alexa. What do you think about Vivi's Dream?
She just kind of stalled. Her 2-year-old year was really impressive. We thought, oh, she might be one of our future stars, and then this year's just been a disappointment. She ran too early on and disappointed in both. Had that 6-month break and came back and kind of disappointed again. So I think we'd need a huge improvement from her.
The number 7, Minx Palace, is a horse who, at first glance, I was going to kind of toss. And then I got back to Minx Palace again, Alexa. And I think one thing's really interesting about this particular filly. When you look at the races where they grab a hold of her and she takes back a little bit, she wins.
Yeah.
In her career debut, she was coming from off the pace. She won. In her second start, they put her on the lead. She faded. In her third start, they went a little bit longer. Fourth start, they took her back. She wins. It seems like she really likes being behind horses, covered up a little
Mhm.
bit. And that's a real thing with certain horses. They have particular running styles. It takes a little while sometimes to figure it out, a little bit of trial and error. But I think they've got her figured out that she just wants to sit behind and then make one late run. I actually think she's heading in the right direction. I would not be shocked at all to see her run well in here.
I mean, she's beat 2 from this field. She beat Ripperton and Vivi's Dream last out. Hasn't run against stakes companies, so this is going to be the toughest spot for her. And her normal jockey is on My Main Squeeze instead, so she does get Jose Ortiz, but he's ridden her before once, and it was to victory. So I agree with you, Gino. I like her progression and where she's heading.
Yeah, you and I kind of think she's the most interesting price. Towards the outside, a couple long shots. Uno Lee couldn't really make a case for this one. The form, I just need to see more from this really lightly raced horse.
Agree.
And the 9, Ripperton, is stakes placed. Ripperton was the runner-up last time out behind Minx Palace. Ripperton seems like a horse who kind of a bit one-dimensional, maybe a pace horse I could see up forwardly placed in here. I just don't know if this one can hang around late.
Yeah, she, lost by a head to Minx Palace last time and 21 to 1 odds, I think. So she outran her odds last time. I think she can outrun her odds again this time, but I think this is a very tough spot to ask her to prove herself.
And rounding out the field is Hall and Ice, who comes in from Charlestown. She actually beat Muccia 2 starts back, and she's traded decisions with that one. Any positive thoughts on the outside runner in here?
Um, I think her worst performances are outliers, but I also think she's not good enough to win today.
Yeah, I think maybe hitting the board could be her ceiling. So that's a look at the field for the Raven run, and we'll take a look at our selections right now. Alexa, how are you going to stack them up?
I'm on Emery this favorite. I just think it's going to be really, really tough.
Yeah, Emery's the horse to beat. I'll throw the 7 on top just for a little value. 7563 for me, 5137 for Alexa. As we get set for a commercial break, let the folks know, Alexa, what's the promo code for them?
Yeah, just head on over to drf.com/sportsgrid and use promo code SGTF24 to get your free card.
Pick 5 right after the break.
it's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoff.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards.
That was
Lincoln!
But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
Guardians, despite being at home in the land, were a home underdog against Tarek Skubal. Enter Lane Thomas, maybe one of the under-the-radar trade deadline acquisitions being dealt from the Nationals. He was huge in the ALDS.
A heavy favorite for the New York Yankees in the series. You're going to look to their best two ball players to be those MVPs. That's Juan Soto and it's Aaron Judge.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I am ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people.
What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back on the Daily Racing Form weekend preview. So for this Saturday, October the 19th, we're going to head over to Keeneland for our Pick 5. And remember, a Pick 5 is very similar to a parlay for those of you who are sports bettors, but we're allowed to use multiple horses in each race. Every time we do, it costs us a little bit more money, so that'll cut down on our return on investment. So we don't want to use a bunch of horses every single race because we won't be winning a whole lot if we actually hit this ticket. So let's see if we can lead you in the right direction a few times as we head on over to Keeneland for Saturday and take a look at a Pick 5 ticket we have put together. I think we're going to spend around $90 on this one, Alexa, and we're going to start in race number 6. Why don't you take it away?
Yeah, race 6 is a 6.5 furlong race on the dirt. I like the number 1, Cape Trafalgar in here at 4-1 odds. He's a 5-year-old who's run some of the fastest races of anybody in here. The 2 races he's won, he took the lead from the beginning and wired the field. So I do think it's interesting that Timeform US gives him the strongest late pace in the field. Personally, I think he's a bit more of a grinder. He's always hit the board at Keeneland, and in his race in May, he was really fast. So I think if he can run back to that performance, he's got a good chance. The number 4, Week Goes, an Irish bred horse, will be the favorite. His last race was here at Keeneland in April in the spring meet in the Grade 3 Commonwealth. And I remember going on our Spanish show and touting him that day. He didn't win, but if you watch the replay, he did have a really tough trip. On the backstretch, he checked, and you can see his jockey almost stand all the way up and is kind of holding him back. And then he still gave a few really nice advances, but couldn't find a clear path, kept getting shut off. And his gallop out after the race was really great. So I really don't think we saw his best that day, and he should be really fresh tomorrow. He won a very similar race to this last year at Keeneland off of a layoff as well. And finally, the number 10, Fort Warren at 8-1 was claimed from trainer Eddie Keneally last out. So this is his first race under the guidance of new trainer Tom Amos, who has better win rates than Eddie does. He also wins 27% of the time with his horses first off the claim. He'll be the early pace in here, but has shown his tactical speed, and he's won on debut on the lead and closed from off the pace as well.
Yeah, that's a tough race. So we're going to go 1, 2, 4, 5, and 10, just trying to get out of there. The 2 is the closer. The 5, Time for Truth, might be the speed of the speed as we turn the page to race number 7, the second leg of the sequence. It's the Grade 3 Perryville. And this is a runner, Locked, who you were talking about horses that are going to be entered in both. I believe Locked is entered at Belmont at the Big A and will be running over there. So that's a major major talking point in this race because that would have been a big time player in here. We're not going to be having to worry about locked in this one, Alexa. So let the folks know who are some of the horses we have on the ticket.
Yeah, I love Dano, the 5, the most successful son of Sire Bucero. He's never done worse than third in his 9 starts. He's won 6 of them. He's won almost $1 million. His speed figures are just way faster than anyone else in here. He's versatile. He's won at multiple distances, just like his dad. He tends to want to close from off the pace, but has also won from right on the lead. So I love this horse. Gino was ready to single him, but I know you saw this race a little bit differently.
Yeah, we actually could have probably singled in any of the next 3 races. I think, honestly, you and I had pretty similar opinions toward the top. But because of that, we didn't have to go that deep in each of these races. And maybe we could beat one of these shorter prices. So we'll throw in the 1 Henro, who's actually a really good sprinter. If you just isolate those sprint races, I think are excellent. And then the 3 Knightsbridge, who's a total X Factor wild card. This horse has run some big races, but he doesn't really stay on the track. He runs and then he needs a whole lot of time off after that. So we'll throw in the 3 and the 5 as well. So 1, 3, and 5, 3 deep for us in race number 7. Alexa, as we move to the 8th race, we're going to go 2 deep in here, and you're going to start to the outside. I almost asked you if we could single this horse because we both like the outside runner quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, this is Taking Candy in the number 12, going to be around 3.5 to 1. And it's from the Cherie DeVoe barn, who is just on fire. She's won 1/3 of her races this meet. And Taking Candy's won about half of his races. So being first or second in every one of his last 4 starts and steadily improving his figures every start, he should be on the lead. And there's just not a whole lot of pace in here. So it's going to be a really comfortable spot for him and give him the advantage.
Yeah, I think from the outside, either on the front end or maybe sitting second if the 8 wants to go and right behind him. If for some reason they go too quick, the 3 Irish Aces fits well at the level, will come running and will pick up the pieces. So we'll throw in the 3 just in case the pace gets a little bit hot early on. Let's move to the 9th. Now, this is the Raven Run. We just spoke about this field horse by horse. Why don't you remind the folks who we're going to be using in this one?
Yep, for our pick 5, we're using 2 horses. We're using the 5 Emery. It will be the favorite, very formidable, deserving favorite, who just ran second to Ways and Means, who is currently projected to be the favorite in the filly and mare sprint for $1 million at the World Championships. And also the number 7, Minx Palace, that long shot we talked about, who's progressing very nicely in her career and taking a step up in class, but did beat 2 of the same contenders in here in her last race.
And we'll look at the ticket in just a minute. It's a $90 ticket. But for those of you out there who maybe want to play a little cheaper ticket, or maybe you don't have the $90 in there to spend, I would be okay with singling in on Emery or Dano. Those are 2 horses that Alexa and I would have been fine keying in on, but we ended up using a couple others just because we have an opportunity now for our ticket to pay a lot more if one of those bigger prices were to hit. Let's close this thing out, Alexa, in race number 10. Start us out in here with the inside, Fixin' to Be.
Yep, Fixin' to Be 12 to 1, so plus 1,200 at fantastic odds. Improved a ton from her first start to her second in terms of her speed figures. And that second start was stretching out to a mile, which is today's distance. It was also at the tough Kentucky Downs track, which is that irregularly shaped uphill downhill course. So even though she didn't place that well, the fact that she progressed with her speed figures in that race says a lot about her, and Timeform US gives her the best pedigree rating of anybody in here with a 97 out of 100. So you can't get a whole lot better than that.
And it also reminds me of something that my girlfriend will say to me sometimes. She's from Dallas, Texas, and she'll say, "Fixin' to, y'all," when I ask her to do something. So it reminded me of that one. Running Away looks like the horse to beat in here, probably the one they'll all have to catch. And then we'll throw in an interesting price horse, too, of the 8 High Breeze, who had a little bit of trouble in that career debut over at Laurel Park. Now we'll stretch out. So 1, 3, and 8 to close it out. Let's take a look at that pick 5 ticket. 1, 2, 4, 5, 10. So 5 deep. Remember, 5 times 3 is 15, times 2 is 30, times 2 is 60, times the 3 is 180. And then because it's a 50-cent pick 5, we divide it by 2. And if you wanted to key in on other horses, maybe in the 7th, you could look at Dano. Maybe in the 9th, you could look at Emery. Those are both the 5s in there. But Alexa, before we get ready for our commercial break, I'm excited because Breeders' Cup is coming up. We're going to have a preview show in just a few weeks right here on SportsGrid. Let the folks know where can they watch that and what's it going to be, what time?
Yeah, so this is so exciting. We're actually going to be out there on the track in California, showing you guys everything that we can about Breeders' Cup and all the contenders. So it's going to be on Wednesday, October 30th from 4 to 7 p.m. Eastern. So make sure y'all tune in.
Breeders' Cup preview when we return.
Can't sometimes look at the point spreads and just, understand what they mean. Because going into the game, you're looking at it, it's like, okay, Denver's playing better football. They won a couple in a row. Now they're going back home.
The Broncos have to turn around and play on a short week. Sean Payton is returning to New Orleans. The Saints just gave up almost 600 yards of offense to the Buccaneers. So it's going to be interesting kind of gut check.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
But if you're playing the odds and you're looking for something that is a more favorable opportunity, it seems like Bo Naylor doing nothing tonight and just watching paint dry is a good investment.
I'm assuming he's in the bottom 3 or 4 of their lineup, which also puts them at risk to be pinch hit, which is great if you have that under. Gets up once or twice, and all of a sudden later in the game, they pinch hit for him, and then you're just free and clear.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
That kid on the 2-point conversion play was wide open on the right side of the end zone, and the kid threw it about 15 rows over his head.
People crystallize Georgia and Alabama. They put them on the shelf above everyone else, and they're just not there this year. I thought the kid Beck was great on Saturday, but they barely beat Mississippi State, who is porous.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Weeks from today is Breeders' Cup Friday, and Friday is Future Stars Friday, Alexa. That means the 5 Breeders' Cup races are going to be all for the juvenile runners, for the future stars of the sport. Really exciting, and we already know that those races are going to go as races 6 through 10 in just a couple of weeks. So we figured let's just do a little check-in right now, a couple weeks out, and take a look at how the fields might be assembled and who some of the major players are.
Yeah, definitely. We got to start looking. There's a couple hundred horses going to be running those days. So Future Stars Friday is exciting. A lot of these horses are going to be potential contenders in Derby next year. So the first race is the Juvenile Turf Sprint, 5 furlongs for $1 million. And I'm really interested in a European shipper in here, Asterius. He is so fast. And he started 6 times and won 4 of them. I watched some of his replays, and the thing that really interested me and piqued the most was his size, how much bigger and more fit he is than a lot of these other horses. And he is a January foal, so he does have those extra months of development, which is a big deal for 2-year-olds.
So Governor Sam has won 3 in a row. Asterius, Big Mojo, they're a couple of those talented European runners. And then Ikoro Sieg is an undefeated Japanese runner. This is a fun group that'll be flying in the Juvenile Turf Sprint. That's going to be the first Breeders' Cup race we see this year. The second one will be the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. And in this one, Alexa, I feel like there's kind of a top tier of like 3 or 4. I think Immersive, Non-Compliant, Scottish Lassie, they all won their local Breeders' Cup preps, and I wouldn't be shocked to see any one of those 3 really go favored or take a lot of support. I might prefer Non-Compliant, and maybe that's just because I'm a Calbred myself, so I like all the California runners or the horses who have run in California. Non-Compliant for Baffert was very impressive last time out, so those are the 3 that are kind of the top tier in there.
Yeah, I agree. I'm really high on Immersive, but just for context, last year this was won by Just FYI, who ended up getting 2nd in the Kentucky Oaks. So this is absolutely a really good predictor of these future stars that we can look forward to. But Immersive is my top pick.
The third of the 5 Breeders' Cup Friday races is the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf. And in this one, we have some questions of some of the European runners who are going to come over or not. A horse like Lake Victoria, if she were to show up, would be very, very tough in here. And then as far as the, the local contingents, Thought Process has been awesome out in Southern California since flipping to the turf. So those are the 2 horses kind of at the top of the division. But I want to mention Destino D'Oro, who had some legitimate trouble last time out and some traffic. I think a lot of people will kind of give that horse a shot.
Oh, he had a painful loss in the Jessamine. He closed from like last to first, but missed it by a nose. It was awful. And this will be the 15th edition of this race. And American horses have actually won 11 out of the last 14. So while there's some very convincing European horses in here, we do tend to dominate it.
Remember, we're going to talk all about all of these races and even more in just a couple weeks on that Wednesday preview show, and we'll give you more information on that in just a second. So Breeders' Cup Juvenile will be the next one. And in the Juvenile, this is the really exciting one, because this is when we think about the Kentucky Derby runners next year. We think about horses that could be in Triple Crown races next year. And it feels like you have East Avenue, who's really, really fast. You have Chancellor McPatrick, who's the total opposite end of the spectrum. He's a stone cold closer. The very talented Jonathan's Way is another one who should be in the mix there. But McPatrick and East Avenue, they're probably the top 2 so far based on what they've done.
Yeah, Bob Baffert has 3 in here. He's the most winningest trainer of this race, winning it 5 times. I think he's tied with another trainer. But out of his contingent, I also like Citizen Bull the best. He won the American Pharoah at Santa Anita and just seems to be kind of back on the top of his game.
And then to round it out, the last of the 5 Breeders' Cup races on Friday, it's the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. Towards the top of this group, Alexa, it's all about the European runners. You see the names of those trainers up there: Whistlejacket, New Century, Alquadra, Amori City. Those are all European horses. So whichever of them end up showing up, they're going to be pretty live.
Yeah, I mean, routes on the turf is what the Euros do. They're great at it. They've won it the last 3 years. Aidan O'Brien's won it the last 2. He was supposed to have 2 in here. You see Camille Pissarro there on the bottom of the list. But the word is Whistlejacket's actually the only one he's going to be sending over here. So that's the breaking news there.
And Zulu Kingdom, probably one of the local contingents that you think would have a shot. But that was just a little bit of a taste, Alexa. In 2 weeks, we're going to get into all of it in a 3-hour Breeders' Cup extravaganza.
Woo! I can't wait. It's going to be so much fun. We won't have these boring office backgrounds. We'll be live from the track. It's going to be awesome at Del Mar, Wednesday, October 30th, 4 to 7 p.m. Eastern. Tune in, everybody, on SportsGrid.
And that's in 2 weeks, though. Don't worry. Next week, we'll be back here with you again, because we have to pad the bankroll and build up some for those big days in just a few weeks. Hope you all have a fantastic weekend. Best of luck. And, oh, hey, go Dodgers.
All right, everybody, it's time to make some deals here. George Kurtz and I have some buy lows and sell highs. Jalen Waddle of the Miami Dolphins, along with Tyreek Hill, you can put both these guys in the same bucket. They might have another down week here. If they do, you've got the bye and then another week to wait until you get to a Tagovailoa. I'm thinking long-term here. If I am a team right now that's sitting at 4-0, 3-1, and I get another win this week, to me, that's the perfect time to start looking ahead to the future and looking ahead specifically to those Dolphins wide receivers, because I do believe once Tua comes back, that those guys can go right back to being top fantasy performers. This is the window. It'll probably last, regardless of whatever they do this week, another week, because of the looming bye, where people can't then start them, and the frustration of that setting in, and maybe even the desperation of loss after loss, as guys like Waddle and Hill are not returning their investment. So I'm buying both of these guys. Are you buying either Miami Dolphin wideout?
Now, this depends on what you believe in. Joe obviously believes that Tua is coming back after the bye. So do I. All right, but keep that in mind. There's been no word that this is definitive. All right, he's out of concussion protocol, so he's already past that. He is talking to a million neurologists. Smart, that's what he should be doing here. But from what we've heard, No one's told him, no doctor's told him you should retire or that you have to retire, due to these concussions. So I think Tua does return. I do. So yes, I would be willing to acquire. This is where you look at the pounds. All right, if you want Hill or Waddle, you're praying today's another cut, and then they have off next week. And you look at the record. Oh, you're 1-4. You can't wait. You can make a good deal here. All right, especially if you're a team that's 4-1, 5-0, whatever it might be.